I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test, to train them is my cause.
That's right, Whisper Nation. The time has finally come for you to be the very best. You too can draft them all with the Fantasy Whispers draft kit, complete with whispers, wannabes, tier jumpers, strength of schedule, player profiles, and so much more. You too can be a fantasy football master. Simply go to thefantasywhispers.com and enter your email for a free draft kit today.
You are now listening to the Fantasy Whisper podcast with your hosts, Johnny, Game Time Hicks, and Big Travy.
Why, hello and welcome to the Fantasy Whispers podcast. That's Big Travy, and I'm Johnny Game Time Hicks, and we're here to give you that fantasy football fix. Episode 19, Travis. Finally here, we can taste the football in the air. We got preseason week 3 games this weekend, which is known by many people and beloved by fantasy people like ourselves who just hunger for the real thing. This is the closest thing we're going to get. What are you looking forward to this weekend, Travis?
A lot of key battles in the positions, a lot of running back battles, a lot of wide receiver battles, especially with the Cardinals. We're going to talk a little bit about a wide receiver battle that I think is actually showing its true cards tonight. If you guys heard Johnny at the top of the show, you heard about the draft kit. Well, we are going to give away a couple nuggets from our draft kit now. And if you want that draft kit, just go to our website, type in your email. It's thefantasywhispers.com, and you can get a free draft kit to help dominate your league this year. But we're going to give away, Johnny, I'm really excited about this episode. We're going to give away a couple whispers, a couple wannabes, and a couple guys we've changed our outlook on this year. So I'm really excited to dive into that.
Both good and bad. Both good and bad.
Yes, exactly. We want to be able to tell the people, hey, we were kind of wrong after initial thought on a guy or two. So I am pumped for this. I think the people will be pumped to hear this. And Johnny, we are a couple weeks away from the very best time of the year, the beginning of the regular season of NFL football. I'm stoked. I'm jacked.
Oh man, I can just, it's so close. I can just feel it. I just can't wait for it to be here. And I know it's going to be here before we know it, because I know, as well as you know, that the next 2 weekends are jam-packed with drafts. Both you and I are in, and many people around the entire fantasy community. And if you have already had your draft, that's okay. Continue to listen to us. But we have a wonderful piece by Austin Cyr after the show, so make sure you tune into that. And he is going to be talking all about when you should have your fantasy draft and why it's so important to wait rather than have your fantasy draft early. But that's going to be awesome. That's in the Austin Cyr's piece right after the show. So make sure you tune into that. All right, Travis, got any last words before we jump into the show?
No, brother, let's do it.
All right. First up, we are going to go with our whispers. That's right. We're picking our top whispers that we might not have mentioned so far in any of our shows, or someone that might have caught our eye more specifically over the last few weeks. Travis, you want to kick this one off with your first whisper?
I would love to, Johnny, and I'm going to kick it a little old school here, and I'm going to go with a quarterback. So I think that my whisper, for everybody hasn't seen the draft kit, you'll see I'm high on a couple guys. One of them was last week's bromance, Matt Stafford, and the other guy is my whisper tonight, Johnny, and that's Marcus Mariota. I really expect big things from Mariota. If you just take a look for a second at the offensive coordinator, that's Matt LaFleur, okay? We've talked about him. He's come over from the Los Angeles Rams quarterback coach position, and now he's the offensive coordinator in Tennessee. And you like when a defensive guy like Mike Vrabel, who's the head coach of Tennessee, brings in an offensive mind, right? Because it means they're going to give him the keys a little bit more on offense. So really, you're going to see this guy kind of put Mariota in a lot of positions to be successful. And why? Because he runs a fast-paced offense. They're going to get more opportunities. And you're looking at a team last year who actually the last 2 years, they were 28th and 28th again in pass attempt ranks, Johnny. They were also 22nd and 29th in play volume rank. And if you look at that stat, that predictive stat of if a team can make that jump or not, that stat is the unaccounted for air yards, right? Roto World, they do a nice piece on this. And their unaccounted yards from 2017 are 898, Johnny. That's 22nd in the league. They are going to be better. It's just how much better. They have improved weapons. We look at Corey Davis, who now reports are coming out today. They're using him all over the field from LaFleur, talking about him being in the slot. We love that because it means his snap count's going to go up, right, Johnny? So he's going to be on the field more. I really like Marcus Mariota. We could get Delaney Walker back healthy. That would be even better. And I just think with both of those powerful running backs that they have in the backfield where the defense is going to be kept guessing all the time, Mariota is set up really well for success this year.
Yeah, Travis, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm definitely really high on this Tennessee offense as a whole. I expect them to be much better than they were last year. And I mean, you brought up several great points, and you look at the adding factors. You look at their wide receiver class and how it's really kind of panning out. And they have Rashard Matthews there. They have the second year Taiwan
Taylor
stringer, Taiwan Taylor. Thank you. And I really like what I see out of him. You
don't just like what you see. LeBron James loved what he saw because he was tweeting him or commenting on it on Instagram, man.
Yeah, he was almost my whisper. In all seriousness, I almost considered
LeBron James.
Exactly. Yep, and LeBron James. But with my whisper, I did decide to go in the wide receiver direction. And I wanted to point this out because we haven't really brought him up too much in the show. And I think that, for people who might not dive into the rankings as much as we do, I certainly want you guys to be monitoring this guy. He's grown leaps and bounds over just the last few weeks, even in ADP. He's been an ADP gobbler, and that's Marquise Goodwin, wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, this guy really started to develop chemistry at the end of last season with Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's continued into this preseason, right? You look at his first game, he had one reception for 18 yards. They only played one series, and you like to see that yardage way up there, right? 18 yards, that's a good chunk of yardage on one catch. He did target him another time in that first game as well. But then you look at this second game, Travis, which is a little bit more time in that offense. They spent about the first quarter, and he had 3 for 61 yards on 5 targets. Now, as you'll find out a little bit later in one of my other segments, Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball 12 times in that game. So you're talking about getting a guy who's going to take up a large portion of that market share. I think Pierre Garçon is on his way out as far as age. I mean, he's still going to be relevant in that offense. They're still going to use him, kind of like they did last year. But Marquise Goodwin is the guy who's going to really bust out of this offense based on what I'm seeing. The only issue that I have at the moment is it's starting to get to the point where he's really starting to climb. And if you look at ADP,
I was just going to say that. I think that we loved him a week ago, right? Or 2 weeks ago when his ADP was in the 7th or even the 6th. It's like now overnight he's in the 5th round. He has got to return that wide receiver 2 value for you in order. Right. So he's got to almost hit his ceiling. Do I think that he's a top 10 guy, top 15 guy? Probably not. Top 25, yes, but he has to do it too. You got to remember he's been in the league now for a while. Granted, that was on a bad Buffalo squad before, and he's had health history before. So those kind of things factor in. But I do love Goodwin this year. I'm with you. I think he's a great whisper pick.
Definitely. All right, Travis, you want to jump into our next section here, and that's going to be the Wannabes for the Fantasy Whispers.
Forgive me, Fantasy Father, for I have sinned. Yeah, my confession here is that Ronald Jones is my wannabe. And I just, it took everything to not make him my change of heart, but I've basically done a 180 on Ronald Jones. And the thing is I could make up for the fact that he wasn't used as a pass catcher in college because of how electric he was in college. We mentioned how elusive he was, how good he was on inside and outside zone runs, and how this was going to fit the Tampa Bay Buccaneers so well. Well, one thing hasn't, somebody hasn't got that note. Actually, two people haven't got that note. One of them's Peyton Barber, who won't get out of the way. And two, Ronald Jones hasn't gotten the hint either, because he has not been good. He has does not have soft hands. And so you just kind of feel like, I don't know if he can turn this around. And so for me, Johnny, especially with his ADP at where it's at, still kind of high. The line is not looking strong. It's ranked number 22 from Pro Football Focus going into the league. And if you look at these tough defenses they got to play in the NFC South, New Orleans twice, Carolina twice, Atlanta twice. I mean, you and I would agree that those are tough defenses to try and run against 6 different times in the year. So for me, Ronald Jones is my wannabe. I say this with a heavy heart. Do I think he's still got value in dynasty leagues? Yes, I think he's going to be good in this league. He just needs to work on some things, and I don't think it's going to be this year.
Yeah, and I mean, it really doesn't help, Travis, when you have the head coach or one of the coaches on the coaching staff come out and be like, yeah, there was a reason why Ronald Jones only had so many receptions in college. I mean, that's not good news to hear.
No.
I've been on the Peyton Barber, bandwagon for a while, and then we saw today as well that they put Charles Sims on the PUP list. So Ronald, expect Peyton Barber's ADP currently in like the 11th round right now. I know I've swooped him up in several mock drafts late in rounds, and expect that to go way up now, especially with this news.
Well, I don't know when you check, Johnny, but it has even gone up from there. It's in the 9th round now. So yeah. I think that it will continue to rise, like you say. I think that's the point Johnny's making here. If you blink for a day on Peyton Barber, and I honestly think that's what makes Jones ADP so high right now, is people get hyped on a guy in offseason, right? At the beginning of the offseason. They don't do their due diligence and listen to the Fantasy Whispers, or maybe they didn't download the Fantasy Whispers draft kit, which you can get at thefantasywhispers.com. But if they're not doing their due diligence, then they're missing out on the fact that the steady drumbeat out of Tampa Bay has been Peyton Barber has had this backfield as his, hasn't given it up, and Jones has not done himself any favors. And so, like Johnny said, you blink for a second, that ADP skyrockets. Be ready. If you're drafting this weekend, be ready to take Peyton Barber maybe a little bit earlier than you thought you would have had to before.
Yeah, I mean, it'll still be a solid pick. I think, Travis, if you want to, what would you say would be the highest ultimately that you're willing to pay up for Peyton Barber?
Probably in the 7th. I think that's where he'll wind up by the time the regular season's around. Maybe borderline 6, depending on how in trouble you are at running back. I know that if you go no running back, or you go upside down, as we like to call it, and you're looking at stacking a bunch of these question mark running backs, one guy I'm targeting is Peyton Barber, especially from the 7th to the 9th round region. He is a guy you can scoop up and feel good about, at least for the first 3 weeks of the season.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. I was going to say 7th round as well. So definitely look for Peyton Barber. All right. My wannabe is going to be a little bit shocking here. And I'm expecting a little bit of boos and a little bit of question mark looks on people's faces, Travis. But my wannabe is quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I know, Travis, you're saying, wait a second. Didn't you just rant and rave about how good Marquise Goodwin was going to be? And if Marquise Goodwin's going to be good, doesn't
wait a second, Johnny. Didn't you just rave about Marquise Goodwin?
I did, in fact. However, what I'm going to say is just because a wide receiver is good doesn't mean their quarterback is good, right? Ask Larry Fitzgerald's quarterbacks. Am I right?
Okay. Hopkins.
Exactly. Thank you. So the reason why I am saying that Jimmy Garoppolo is a wannabe right now is if you look at his ADP, he's going top 10 amongst quarterbacks, which is just insane. He's got a lot of guys after him that are way more proven than he is, going after him in drafts way later in rounds, and I just don't understand it. If you look at the first,
even not so proven, but more upside, wouldn't you say? Like Think about my whisper, not to plug my whisper again, but Marcus Mariota, right? If you're looking at Mariota and Garoppolo, would you say that Mariota's got more upside? Probably because of the rushing,
Yes, I 100% agree with that. And it's not just a feeling that I have. Travis, if you watch the gameplay, all right, his first game in preseason, he went 3 for 6, which was a very short drive, but still 50% is they didn't get the first down, right? The second game, now if you just look at the stats, which you should never do if you're just scouting preseason, don't just look at the stats. It's so misleading. And this is a pure example reason why. He went 10 for 12 in his second game. Now that, if you look at the stats on that, you're going to say, wow, that's really efficient. Why are you so down on him? Well, in his first game, the average yards per pass completion, try saying that 5 times fast, is 5.7. Very, very minimal. Okay. The second game was better, but it was still only 11.3. Now, I don't like what I see there, because when I was watching a lot of the game film, what it was a lot of bootleg outs, and they tend to open the tight end up a lot and do dink and dunks. Now, that's good for the tight end, Kittle. I am rising on Kittle. And, like I just said, Goodwin, because that's when they can kind of break off their routes and get free and get massive chunks. However, the problem is Jimmy Garoppolo was doing a lot more dinking and dunking than throwing down the field. When you looked at his down the field targets, he had 4. He connected on 2. Do you know the only 2 receptions that went above 15 yards? Do you know who they went to?
Goodwin?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So another reason why I love Goodwin and Jimmy Garoppolo, once they get into the red zone, he just lacks a lot of red zone depth and red zone targets there. There's not many people over 6'1". I think Goodwin's the tallest one, and he's 6'1". So that part concerns me. And so if I'm looking at quarterbacks, and especially one that's going super early, I would rather wait. I think he's a wannabe. I don't think he's going to end up in the top 10 where he's currently being drafted right now.
Yeah, I think you hit all the points that I would want to make on Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's draft stock too high. He did not score a lot of touchdowns. You look at the 7 games that the 5 games that he was in last year, only 7 touchdowns in those 5 games. So not a lot of touchdown threat, like you said. And so for me, he killed him with yardage, but yardage for quarterbacks is not scored relatively high compared to running backs and wide receivers in fantasy, as we know. And so, yes, I'm with you. I think the guy we talked about earlier in the year when we were ranking quarterbacks, his ADP was high, and we were talking about the pros and cons. It's settled back down. You can kind of see that with our projections, which we've done and we have for you in the draft kit, with those projections, you're able to stay honest, and you see Garoppolo probably not going to crack that top 10 this year. All
right, Travis, we're going to I don't want to end this on a bad sour note. Our show.
Okay.
So we're gonna do changes of heart for the good first, for the bad, and then we'll jump to changes of heart for the good. All right. So you want to jump in here for the change of heart bad?
Yeah, and so here's the thing. Last week, if you caught our show, we did our bromances, and my bromance at the quarterback position is Matt Stafford. And my biggest case for Matt Stafford is this is probably the best wide receiving core he's ever had. But with that means that targets are going to have to go away. And so for me, I don't think you can rely on Golden Tate as much as you've been able to over the last 4 years in Detroit. I think with the emergence of Kenny Golladay, Tate's age is obviously getting up there. And the preseason has shown us that the Lions are now using Kenny G in 2 wide receiver sets over Tate. So, yes, he's got those 90 catches in each of the last 4 seasons, but they haven't had the receiving talent that they currently have in Detroit. And none other than Golden Tate himself was quoted saying that Kenny Golladay could be a number 1 wide receiver on any other team. So, yes, that's hype from another player. That's his teammate. That's his boy. But all the signs for me, Johnny, are pointing to regression for Golden Tate and an ascension of Kenny Golladay and an overall ascension of Matt Stafford, of course. But for me, I think, and with the running game improved, I don't think that they'll need to dink and dunk their way down the field as much. I think that they're going to be set up to take more shots with improved running back play out of LeGarrette Blount, and Kerryon Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest stat that you just pointed out was the fact that they're already starting to go away from Tate a little bit, right? They're putting Kenny G, out there on the 2 wide receiver sets. Now, my question for you, Travis, coming off of this is, what do you see the true effect that Kenny G doesn't have, not necessarily on Tate, but on Marvin Jones? Are you lowering your expectations for Marvin Jones, and we could turn this into a 2-part question, and that who would you rather have, knowing the draft stock value right now? Would you rather pay up a little bit more? Marvin Jones is currently going around the 5th to 6th round, and then Kenny G is going much, much later, more of a wide receiver stash. Which one would you rather do currently? If you were drafting today, would you take Marvin Jones or take the draft value and maybe the upside in Golladay?
Well, there's a couple nice running backs that are going around Marvin Jones, in Rex Burkhead, Dion Lewis, even Rashad Penny, whose value has dipped a little bit because of the injury, but he's starting to make his way back. So for me, it obviously depends on roster construction, but if you're sitting there and you're going, I need a running back more than I need Marvin Jones, I can wait and scoop up Kenny Golladay. I think it's safe to do that. If I look at my projections for Detroit, let me pull these up just a second. If I look at my projections for Detroit, I've got Marvin Jones at over 1,000 yards, but I have Kenny Golladay knocking on the door with 900 yards. So I think I'm maybe a little bit higher in the industry than Kenny Golladay, but the 2 wide receiver set thing really, and these aren't final projections for the year, but the 2 wide receiver set thing really means something. It usually translates to snaps in the year. And so for me, what I would like to do is take a look at the 3rd preseason game that they're playing and really see the distribution again, because the Lions have done a little funky things, and I'm willing to come down maybe on Golladay if they work more in the dress rehearsal. But I like Golladay this year.
I don't hate that projection, and I'll tell you why. Right now, I currently have him at 77 receptions for just under 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, that was before the news came out today about him running as the 2s. So right now I have Golden Tate as the market share, the 2nd market share there with 19% and Kenny G with 13. I might get that a little bit more even, do 15-15. And you're looking right around those stats.
I've actually swapped them and and this is my take. I'm drawing a line in the sand here based on some of the things I've seen. And so for me, I've switched it. I've got 18% for Golladay, 16% for Tate. And the reason I'm doing this is we got to remember that somewhere around 80 targets left with Eric Ebron. So there is going to be more ability in the passing game, and who better to take that than a big-bodied, physical wide receiver like Kenny Golladay?
All right, I'm going to move on to my changes of heart for the bad, and that's Jay Ajayi.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow,
and I'm going to say here's the reason why. We saw, and I'm going to lay out the positive here, right? I'm just going to lay it on the table. Jay Ajayi comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, and from weeks 13 to weeks 20, and I said 20, I'm counting the playoffs, we each in each single week, we saw his carries increase significantly, right? He went from 12 to 16 to 14 to 16 to 18 and then 21. Now, that's wonderful. And then you look at it to see what Wendell Smallwood did tonight in the preseason game. Smallwood had a very, very good game. I'm not saying that Jay Ajayi can't have a good game or that he won't end up at the end of the year as a top running back. For me, it has to do with 2 major things, and that's why I have a change of heart, right? We didn't see Jay Ajayi at all this entire preseason. So we really don't know what this timeshare is going to be. And that's the major factor. We already know what Corey Clement can do out of the backfield. We already project that Sproles is going to come back, and they've already said he's going to have a role in this third down as the third down running back. So just how many carries is he going to get? And that's the big question. That's what everyone's asking. And then if I do presume he's going to get that number one backfield, I do see him being productive. I think that he is a very talented running back. The problem is I haven't seen it, and I don't want to guess at what he's going to get, especially, and this is the biggest part for me, Travis, we talk about draft stock value. You're looking at a guy who's going in the third round right now.
To be fair, it's the end of the third. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, though, for sure.
You know, so
Still.
Just saying, the end of the third round, you're looking at pretty good wide receivers there. Diggs, Thielen, sometimes Baldwin is that, you know, like a lot of these guys, we know what they're going to be. So when you're talking about, you know, drafting, you want to hit on those first four picks or be as solid as can be on those first four picks. And to me, Jay Ajayi is a very, very risky pick now. Now, don't get me wrong. He could be, and that's why I just did him as a change of heart and not a wannabe, right? Yeah. I did him as a change of heart because I came into this season saying Jay Ajayi is going to be a monster. He looked so good last year. I love how the touches increased, and then I haven't seen anything. Right. Yeah. And I just haven't seen anything from him. So it just makes me nervous and cautious. So that's why he was my change of heart, because I was so pumped and amped for him coming into the season, and then it's just nothing. We haven't heard any news, nothing come out about Jay Ajayi at all. So that's why he was a change of heart. All right, we're gonna end it. Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask you, like you mentioned Adam Thielen there, and maybe even Tyreek Hill up against Jay Ajayi, and maybe it has to do with your roster at the time, but for me, based on usage, your argument is usage for Jay Ajayi in the preseason, right? We haven't seen enough yet. Right. I haven't seen anything out of Thielen yet that makes me want to say, I'm going to take Jay. You know what I mean? So for me, Thielen is a guy, if we were doing a whole segment on change of heart, he's a guy I bet I would say is a change of heart candidate or an honorable mention, if you will. So just as food for thought, depends on your roster, but there are guys that you said, Johnny, that are down there, like Royce Freeman, who is now in the same area. I think we know Royce Freeman is the guy.
All right, I'm gonna we'll after we're done with this little segment, we will be doing a our fun like would you rather game.
Okay.
But I'm gonna start just one real quick since we got it here, we're on topic. Going right around each other. So Freeman, Collins, or Jay Ajayi. Where are you going right now?
Collins. Collins for me is a guy that you don't want to believe it in your heart. Something tells you, this doesn't look right. And maybe it's still the fact of his 5th round draft pick that got cut from Seattle. And you're like, oh my God, like, I just think he's not that good. But he was good last year, man. And they didn't sign anybody else. And Kenneth Dixon can't stay healthy or do anything good in this preseason. And they still haven't signed anybody else. So for me,
they hate Javaris Allen.
Yeah, Buck Allen.
They hate him. Buck Allen. They hate him. They won't give him the workhorse back. So
so I just think for me, Alex Collins is the guy to own in that grouping because 1, the offensive line in Baltimore is one of the better ones in the league. 2, last year they were dominant as far as a run game, even with Marshall Yonda out. So they were top 5 in a lot of categories as far as running backfield. So for me, it's Alex Collins, and I'll be preaching that till the cows come home pretty much. So moving on, though, to my change of heart, Johnny, and in the good nature. And I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, I know, because honestly, his draft stock's not very good as it is, and people are worried. Ooh. And I'm a Green Bay Packer fan. But Jimmy Graham is my change of heart for the better. Ooh. Coming into this year, trust me, as a Packers fan, I know we have never used the tight end very efficiently. We, have always thrown to the wide receivers in the red zone. But for me, we have never had a talent. And you can say Martellus Bennett last year, but he was on his way out. We can see that now. And for me, we've never had a talent like Jimmy Graham. So Jimmy Graham is my change of heart. And the idea here is that all of Jordy Nelson's, Reds. And so
That was crazy.
that was like every drop ever.
A little. Whoa! It ended well.
Okay, so
Sorry, a little.
that's
I got so excited with your pick, Travis. I just had to hit all.
No
of
worries.
So many emotions going through me.
So the idea here is that what, Johnny? That all of Jordy Nelson's work is going to go to Davante Adams, like all of it? I mean, if you look at the 2 years, right, where both Jordy Nelson and Davante Adams were on the field with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, Jordy led the league in red zone looks in those years with 32 and scored 14 touchdowns. Adams Adams had 23 looks and scored 12 touchdowns. I'm sorry, that's 2 years ago, not for a 2-year total. That was 2 years ago. Yeah. And so the bottom line is that Rodgers can have multiple double-digit touchdown weapons in a single season. And I hear the concerns about game speed and yards per catch, but straight from the horse's mouth, and the horse in this case is Aaron Rodgers, he was saying that the 2011 offense that the Packers had was very dynamic. But this year we have the X factor in Jimmy. He understands defenses so well. He can catch anything, and he's impossible to cover. He also said this guy understands the game as well as just about anybody we've had around here. And he says the same category as John Kuhn or Jordy Nelson. And then your boy, Tony Romo, says, people don't understand. You're going to see old school Jimmy Graham. With him paired with Aaron Rodgers, you're going to see a little different animal in the red zone that will be almost unstoppable. So for me, Johnny, call it hype, call it fluff, call it what you will. Aaron Rodgers has an elite talent at the tight end position. He goes where elite talent is, or he makes elite talent out of people. Why would you not hedge your bet here on Jimmy Graham? I've projected him now, and I think he's my 3rd or 4th ranked tight end based on these new projections, based on what I've believed to be true coming out of preseason here. And so for me, I'm skeptical because of the tight end usage, but that skepticism is gone. The change of heart is here, and he's my top 5 tight end for a reason. I like Jimmy Graham a lot now.
My only concern is just draft capital, right? I buy into what you're saying. I buy into the fact that Aaron Rodgers loves him. I buy into the fact that they are going to slot him outside one-on-one and just throw it up and have him go get it. He's not as athletic as he used to be. He's not going to be able to go and quite get it at its high point like he used to be able to. However, the majority of cornerbacks these days are like 5'10". It's rare that you get one over 6 feet tall. So you're looking at an extreme height advantage. And with Aaron Rodgers' accuracy, can you just imagine this? If Rodgers can get that chemistry down, the back shoulder fade down with Jimmy Garoppolo or with Jimmy Graham. That would be nuts. With Jimmy Graham, that's going to be nearly unstoppable. Like you were just saying.
And so I don't have those quotes in front of me, but just to your point, Jimmy Graham has already come out and said his back shoulder throw is unbelievable. So this is a guy who played with both Russell Wilson and Drew Brees and is realizing that, no offense to those guys because they're cream of the crop too, this is the best guy maybe to ever throw the football in Aaron Rodgers. And so, I mean, just look at the guys going around Jimmy Graham. I know you said draft capital, but Chris Hogan, Kerryon Johnson. I love Kerryon, but this is way too high of draft stock. Allen Robinson, and your boy Marquise Goodwin. For me, obviously depends on what you're doing at tight end, but I think he's okay right there, especially if he gets those double-digit touchdowns, man. That could be the game changer. I mean, if you're talking about guys that can touch the Gronk tier, if all things go right, Jimmy Graham is a guy that can do that. Exactly.
He's done it before, so that's not out of the realm. It's just, is he still have it at his age? Speaking of, it's kind of funny, Travis, because not only is your change of heart a tight end, but my change of heart is also a tight end. and that is David Njoku, right, from the Cleveland Browns. I will tell you why it was a change of heart for the good, and that's because when we came into this season, I knew that David Njoku had a great year last year. I knew that he led the league for targets for a tight end as a rookie. I still wondered what kind of production he might have, considering all the value and all the weapons that Tyrod now has around him, as well as, if you want to say, Baker Mayfield whenever he eventually gets on the field. Good news that came out so far with Tyrod Taylor, so that we'll see what it looks like. He was still favoring that arm and that hand when he came back into the game. However, getting away from the point here, I just thought that there were too many targets for David Njoku to kind of have an impact and be fantasy relevant. Well, boy, was I wrong, right? We saw it in the first game. He came down with 2 touchdowns. Now,
one from each quarterback.
Exactly, and that's the main point I want to make is we saw it with both quarterbacks, which makes me super safe when I'm thinking about drafting Njoku, which is going way late in rounds. You're talking 12th round pick for Njoku, sometimes later if you're in, like a more competitive league that kind of knows what they're doing, then you're talking even later than that. So for me, I saw exactly what I wanted to see in that first preseason game, that both of the quarterbacks will target him. He's a physical freak. He's monstrous. If you watch any of the Hard Knocks shows on HBO, I mean, it seems like every other scene is him without a shirt on. Good gravy. That guy is jacked. And
whoa, Johnny, bromances were last week, bro.
Yeah, right. I'm almost like, in all honesty, I really kind of wish I would have chosen him as my tight end bromance, because I think he has that ability, right?
Yeah.
We don't know what Flash Gordon is going to do. We don't know how he's going to be. Now, we can only speculate. We can only wish and dream and imagine because of what he did in the past. I do have my concerns with Josh Gordon. And then you look
Johnny,
at –
this is for another show, but I just want to say this. Like, you talk about his past, okay, but you can't discredit what he did last week or last year, and that was recent. Coming back from all this time off, he gets in and he kills it for the time he's in with garbage. No offense to Deshaun Kaiser, he's on my Packers, but Deshaun Kaiser was garbage at the quarterback position last year.
Do you know what wide receiver Josh Gordon finished? If you just take the games where he played, so 13 through 16, do you know what he finished at that?
Why don't you tell me and the Whisper Nation?
Wide receiver 25.
Okay.
So outside of a wide receiver,
4 years off, he comes back and he's wide receiver 25. So I think like I'm just saying, now he's going to have a full off season. He's in great physical shape again, and he's with a quarterback that is leagues better. Wouldn't you say is leagues better than Deshaun Kaiser, especially with the deep ball?
Here's the thing. If Tyrod is the quarterback, then yes.
Agreed.
If Baker is the quarterback, then it's not his game style.
Of course. If Baker's the quarterback, you upgrade your boy Njoku. If Baker's the quarterback, you upgrade Jarvis Landry. Both of those skill sets fit.
Bless them.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like Njoku. To get back to your point, I love Njoku. I think he's a great change of heart to have. I hope that you're not like getting a little too much into the HBO Hard Knocks bias here, because you love Jarvis, you love Njoku now. So just remember to kind of, it'll come back to earth, and that's what we do this for. And if you guys check out our projections, it's not like we're high up. It's not like Johnny's saying, Njoku's going to be the top 5 tight end this year.
Exactly.
You can get those projections on our website if you download the free draft kit at thefantasywhispers.com. Johnny, are we going to play a little Would You Rather?
Oh, I would love to. I would absolutely love to. All right. I'm going to kick this off here, Travis, with a little wide receiver trio, and I want you to rank these in order that you would take them, okay? So all going back to back on ADP as far as wide receivers. So AJ Green, Mike Evans, or T.Y. Hilton?
Okay, so here we go. I think for me, I'm going to go T.Y. Hilton, Mike Evans, and A.J. Green. And I'm going to tell you why. I think T.Y. Hilton is a one for me because we see a guy that can touch the yardage level of the elite at the position when Andrew Luck is on the field. He's led the league in yardage when Andrew Luck is on the field. So I think T.Y. Hilton's upside as far as for yardage is great. I don't think his upside's better than Mike Evans because Mike Evans has finished number 2 at the position. But because of some of the weapons that are around Mike Evans, that's why I've kind of downgraded him in this argument. So T.Y. Hilton, then Mike Evans, and A.J. Green. And the reason I say A.J. Green third, I love A.J.'s talent. It's more about the depth of, obviously, the position. So there's that. And I know that Andy Dalton peppers him, but if John Ross is doing, well, like the steady drumbeat out of Cincinnati is that John Ross is here. I mean, they let go. God, I'm blanking on his name of the veteran wide receiver.
LaFell.
Brandon LaFell. So obviously Ross is in a better spot than he was last year. I don't think it's going to take a terrible amount away from A.J. Green. I still have them in close to the same tier. But yes, give me T.Y. Hilton, Mike Evans, then A.J. Green.
All right. Next one, we'll switch over to the end just for 2 cents added. I have them ranked the exact same way as you do in that, or in T.Y., and then Mike Evans, then A.J. All right. We're going to jump over to the running back position here. Going at the end of the 4th round and beginning of the 5th, we have Mark Ingram, Marshawn Lynch, and Kerryon Johnson. Now, let's remember that Mark Ingram is suspended for the first 4 games. They have a bye in week 6. So going into week 7, you will only be able to have played Mark Ingram 1 time. And guess what? He's probably going to be a little bit rusty in that 1 game. Don't be disappointed if he comes back and kind of gives a little bit of a stinker there. So you need to be super confident if you're drafting Mark Ingram. Travis, how do you have these guys ranked? Where are you choosing if you are on the board right now? You needed a running back, or you need to at least add some running back depth.
Who was the third running back, Johnny?
Kerryon Johnson. Your guy, Kerryon Johnson.
You would do this to me, man.
Of course I would.
Sneak him in there. I'm going to take Marshawn Lynch. He's the only guy we know is the number 1 starter right now. Kerryon Johnson, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Detroit is starting Amir Abdullah right now. So what the heck are they doing? I don't know. Well, that's why I'm really interested in that Detroit 3rd preseason game. But back to this. I love Ingram. I think that stock is too high for a guy, like you said, that by week 7, you've only played him once. You can make up for a guy with a 4-game suspension if all 4 of his games are in that first 4, of the season. If he doesn't have a bye mixed in there, then you're looking to scramble around. And so for me, yes, the beginning of the year is easier to make up for, but not when it's almost half the year, Johnny. So for me, the bye kind of really troubles me there. So I actually am taking Kerryon Johnson ahead of Mark Ingram. And that's because of the play style. And I think we're getting close here to Kerryon Johnson has done things in the passing game that make you think he can play all 3 downs. Mm-hmm. And he runs like an Arian Foster at times. And you're like, this guy is special. So, yes, I think Theo Riddick's going to be annoying and LeGarrette Blount's going to be annoying. But I think there are going to be games where you, like, especially in best ball, I love Kerryon Johnson. I think there's just going to be games where he pops off. But give me Lynch first. He is a number 1 running back in a John Gruden offense. I'll take that.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm taking, Marshawn Lynch was one of my bromances. Of course, I've got to go with Marshawn Lynch. And then I would tend to go Kerryon just because I am a little bit more conservative and waiting half the season. And I just also want to touch on the point that you made, because I think it was a very valid one. And that's the fact that the bye week comes at a very bad time, right? Like I would almost rather the bye be week 5. So that way we know, all right, he's going to be integrated all this bye week. They're going to, get him in there. And then, week 6 comes around and then you're good to go, right? It's almost like a teaser, and it's not even going to be a good teaser because I don't expect him to do a lot in that game. So, I have him the same way. It's crazy that I'm saying Kerryon Johnson ahead of Mark Ingram, but
welcome.
Like you said, yeah, I do like his talent. I like his talent a lot. All right, Travis, we're going to go another wide receiver trio here. And I know we've debated this amongst ourselves back and forth, but never on live on the mic. And that's going to be Amari Cooper, Juju Smith, or my guy, Larry Fitzgerald.
Mm.
So you got hype, you got high upside, and you got steady Eddie.
I'm going to take Amari Cooper, Juju Smith-Schuster, and then Larry Fitzgerald. No disrespect to Larry Fitzgerald, but every week he's going to get you 8 to 10, right? You can count on it. That's going to be there. It's steady. He's never going to give you these 15, 20-point games. I mean, I wouldn't say never. But he's rarely going to give you those games.
He'll have 2 to 3 in the game.
He's rarely going to do it.
Right.
Juju Smith-Schuster and Amari Cooper have ridiculous upside, especially – I would say Smith-Schuster if an Antonio Brown goes down. If Antonio Brown goes down, you're talking about maybe one of the best wide receivers in the league on any given week in Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, but for the reason that Amari Cooper is the number one in a John Gruden offense, like we said again, I'm taking Amari Cooper above Juju Smith-Schuster.
All right. I would agree.
It's tough, right? Amari Cooper is doing it to us again. I mean, this is the same story as last year, right? You're like, oh my God, he's got to break out. I think there's a universe, Johnny, where next year we're saying Amari Cooper is Devontae Parker, where every year we're hyped to see this guy perform, and he doesn't do it. It is scary, but I will say this. I think Cooper is more of a physical specimen than Parker. I think Cooper is more talented than Devontae Parker. I'm just saying some of the narrative could be the same. And so for me, yes, Cooper's scary, but God, that upside is legit, man.
All right. One last one and we'll get out of here. This one's a tough one. Like I'm talking, this is nasty. All right.
Bring it on. I ain't scared.
Chris Carson. These are going back at the 6th round, early 7th. Chris Carson, Sony Michel, or Marlon Mack?
Give me Sony Michel.
Okay.
And the reason I say this is because when you look at the rushing over the last three years or so, the rushing that comes out of New England, that pie is bigger than almost every other team. Okay. So if you cut up chunks of that pie, it's still bigger than entire teams' outputs. And so for me, New England you want a piece of that backfield. So if you didn't get Rex Burkhead ahead of him and you're sitting down there and you're between those guys, listen, Seattle line I have real issues with. Issues. I think Chris Carson is the starter. I think Rashad Penny has a good shot of overtaking him just based on talent. And so I think that I don't want Carson. And then Marlon Mack is part of a committee of backs with a guy who has a heritage of using 4 backs at times. So, and we got Christine Michael just sitting there out of nowhere. This guy will not refuses to not be talked about in fantasy football.
Right. He's just like, he just wants to be a pain in our rear end every year.
Yeah. So in the order, I would say Sony Michel, Chris Carson, and then Marlon Mack. The upside's just too good there in New England, man.
Here's I'm going to actually pivot a little bit for you. I will say Sony Michel is my number 1 pick there because of the upside, because of the offense, because of the ability.
You liked the way Marlon Mack looked in that preseason game, don't you?
Yes, I'm going to go. And here's the thing. I understand and I completely agree with the fact that, he's going to use multiple backs and it's not going to be clear how many carries Marlon Mack's going to get in any given day. But what I do see is value in that offense. I think that offense could be better than
that improved. Do you think it'll be that improved?
I think that with Andrew Luck, yes, it's more so the offense as well as how much that offensive line in Seattle scares me, as well as the fact that I'm not writing Penny out of this. I'm not. I think that he is going to, by the end of the year, be the starting wide running back for Seattle. And so for me, it would just be essentially a 3, maybe 4 week rental of Chris Carson going in the 6th round. I think that I have a higher chance of landing Marlon Mack as a timeshare leader in an offense and an offensive line that is much better than the Seattle offensive line. So, and I just think that Seattle's going to be down a lot more than the Colts are going to be down. So I think that they're not going to be able to run the ball.
Maybe. I think they're kind of similar situations. Both defenses are depleted. Seattle's defense may be a little bit better just because of some of the residual pieces that are left from the old team than, Indy's defense. So I would actually tend to disagree with you on that fact. I think Indy's defense is going to be worse, and I think they'll be running. And like for a guy that Mack, who only caught around 20 balls last year, I don't know.
But I mean, the Nyheim Hines fumbleitis, that's the other thing that concerns me about Sony Michel. He's had a ton of fumbles already.
Agreed.
You need touchdowns to win fantasy games, and they're not going to put him in around the goal line if he's fumbling, if he keeps fumbling. So, all right, that's
guys
it.
In the 7th round, and we've talked about this before, Johnny. In those rounds, you want to be taking dart throws. So, would you say that the highest upside is Sony Michel?
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that's why I would slightly edge on the side of Marlon Mack, because I think that he
upside's a little higher than Chris Carson.
Yeah, exactly. Great summarize there. All right, that's it for today's show. Again, if you have a draft this weekend or next weekend, check out the Fantasy Whispers draft kit. It's absolutely free. All you got to do is go over to our website, thefantasywhispers.com. Get your Fantasy Whispers draft kit for free. Just enter your email address. Super easy. It gets emailed directly to you within seconds, and you get all the awesome stuff that we stated in the beginning of this show. You get all of that for free. That's it. So make sure that you check that out, as well as enjoy this next little segment piece by Austin Cyr. That's going to be his Whisper perspective of this week. So make sure you check that out. Like always, thank you all for joining us. I'm Johnny Game Time Hicks. That's Big Travy. You can catch us on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. Download the latest podcast.
Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. You must be stopping by for another Whisper perspective. I'm Austin Cyr. Let's talk about the best time to draft. Now, I know many of you in the Whisper Nation have already completed your 2018 drafts, so the next 75 seconds are going to serve as a drawn-out I told you so, or like watching a Food Network program after you burnt the enchiladas. But let's break it down. This is a simple conversation. When's the best time to draft? As late as your league possibly can. Why? Injuries and updates. Listen, there are few things worse in fantasy football than investing a high early round pick on a caliber player like a Jordy Nelson in 2015 or a Jamal Lewis in 2001 just to watch those stars go down in August, painfully and slowly. Kind of like those aforementioned enchiladas. Teams also begin to take shape as the preseason progresses. As rosters update, sleepers emerge, and your map to fantasy success becomes even more clear. Of course we're all eager though to have our squads as early as possible. But what good does it do when the points in preseason don't matter, but the injuries do? Listen, I get the, but I want it now feeling. Don't be a Veruca Salt though. Be a Charlie Bucket. Patience is your golden ticket. Thanks for stopping by to hear this Whisper perspective. I'm Austin Cyr. Catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Whisperers podcast. You can hear more from John and Travis on Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TF Whisperers.